Hello there, General Techno here with a very special video to present to you guys. As some of you probably know, I'm what one would call a canon Nazi. Given that I've just invoked Godwin's Law, you can choose to keep watching if you want, or you can just turn this off right now. Whatever. Seriously, I'm probably going to be ranting like some sort of fanboy, so if you think that those people look like complete morons, then go ahead and turn this off right now. I'm just going to excuse you, and yeah. So you've been warned. Anyway, as a big continuity person, I generally rely on the premise that I'm fine with retcons. However, I hate rewrites of past continuity. I cannot tolerate when people decide, oh no, these stories that were written all this time ago, which were mediocre stories, maybe even bad stories, we have to rewrite these things from scratch and ignore plot points and details in order to make these things, in order to make new stuff that we want to do work fine. I just don't tolerate this whatsoever. Again, even if it's a bad story, I hate this kind of thing. But I digress. So yeah, IDW's comics, I've been reading these since not the beginning, but very close to the beginning. But I've read all of their stuff in this current continuity so far. And honestly, when they announced they were doing this Transformers Continuum book that's coming out around the time of the ongoing, in order to fill in people who haven't read the books yet on all the stuff that happened before, I thought this was a great idea. Realistically speaking, the Transformers books have not been handled that well as far as chronology goes by IDW, because their numbering scheme has been very arbitrary since some higher up decided, oh, miniseries sell better, so as a result, we need to sell only miniseries. So because of that, you have a lot of people that don't know in what order to read things. And thus this Continuum book is great because in theory the idea is that it's going to give people a bit of a guide as to what came before so that they know all of this stuff and aren't as unprepared about they don't have as much confusion about the plot points that are referenced in the ongoing when it launches. So anyway, I was very optimistic about this. And then what happens? The 5-page preview shows up online. A 5-page preview. Now, I'm going to not touch on this 5-page preview that much. I'm going to try and skim over these pages because Walkie did a very, very, very accurate parody of them in his latest short-packed comic. But, needless to say, the trend appears to be that they're not just retconning, but rewriting and reclassifying entire miniseries and issues of material. Something I cannot tolerate at all. And so, having picked up Continuum, which I have right here in my hands, I'm now going to read through this. I have not opened this yet, not read anything aside from the 5-page previews, and I'm going to analyze this for canonicity. It looks like that Andy Schmidt is the writer on this here. And they begin this issue with a prelude, which wasn't in the preview, and it's basically just summarizing the standard Transformers preamble with the Cybertron world of metal, splits into Autobots and Decepticons, then the world's is dead, which, yeah, accurate, so then the war spreads to Earth, and becomes pivotal planet for an intergalactic war. Earth holds the key to the Transformers war. What is that key and who will discover it? Well, we already know what this key is as far as the original books go. I can accept a new key showing up, but let's hope that they reference this key. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to just glaze over the first 5 pages of the 5-page preview. So, the first 2 pages here are Megatron Origin references, and basically what it skims over here is the big things it does is it says that Megatron Origin, that whole 4-issue miniseries, which we hyped and published at the time as being the origin of the Decepticon faction, it's now legend. There's no guarantee that any of the stuff in there actually happened at all. And then they go in and say that he was a slave who led a rebellion, which is not what the book says. The book has him as a miner, not a slave. There is a distinct difference because you don't shut down mines that are mined by slaves. The reason that Megatron's mine was shut down in the book was because certain unscrupulous senators figured it would be cheaper to just automate the mines so that they didn't have to pay anybody. So yes, clearly Megatron was not a slave. He was just a working class robot. It's a very different connotation. And the whole leading a rebellion with the working class brothers, yeah, that works, but not if he's a slave. And then they talk about after it began, he recruited many new allies. With regards to the Seekers, I quote, "They ruled the skies and were noble." Yes, this is retarded. But then they talk about these recruiting forms, and then they say another form of recruitment may have come from battling in gladiatorial style matches. Unfortunately, this falls apart because this was how Megatron recruited people in the origin book. He recruited people because of the games. Because of the games, people flocked to his cause, and he used the games as a vehicle to recruit even more followers through his ideology. That's the reason that he attracted Starscream and Razorclaw and all those other myriad Decepticons in the origin book. So they're completely rewriting this here. And then they go on to the whole Sentinel Prime challenging Megatron to a one-on-one battle. This is accurate. Sentinel Prime had never been defeated, neither had Megatron. Result was not in Sentinel Prime's favor. And to be perfectly fair, they don't explicitly say whether or not Sentinel Prime died or not. I'll give Schmidt credit for this, if only because of the fact that the comic was never clear on this. The writer said his writer's intention was that Sentinel wasn't killed, and it could go either way the book is written. So honestly, yeah, I can live with the ambiguity there. And then they do to their kudos, they then do say that it's believed at this point his quest for better treatment turned into an insatiable hunger for control. Again, I can kind of go by this as well. This I can kind of accept, so I'll give props where props is due. And then on the next page, they're talking about they don't know what sparked the Great War, which, yeah, we don't know this either, so. Because Megatron Origin wasn't the beginning of the Great War, it was the beginning of the Decepticons. Key difference. Anyway, so we know that every robot on Cybertron had to choose a side. And then they're talking about how on these 2 pages here, they talk about how one such soldier would later become the leader of the Autobots. But then they say, no known records of this transformation exist. Really? We know Ironhide was around when Prime was working his way up the ranks. We know Kup was around when Prime was working his way up the ranks. They both knew Optimus early on. Kup knew Optimus from before he was a Prime. And yet no known records exist of this? I'm sorry. If I'm an Autobot, I'm not going to follow somebody who just comes up, hits his voice chip that goes, "I am Optimus Prime," and then go, "Oh, you're a Prime, I'm going to follow you. I don't know where you came from, but I'm going to follow you." Seriously, just about all of the Autobots around were from that time era. So the fact that nobody knows how Prime actually became a Prime is simply retarded. Now then, we get on to the parts which I so far have a bigger issue with. Specifically, the Spotlight Shockwave, Spotlight Soundwave, the Stormbringer related stuff. This is all stuff in which ties into Bludgeon and Or-13 and Thunderwing and Shockwave, and the Dinobots and Soundwave tie in tangentially as well. But anyway, it's talking about Shockwave decides to take action because he figured out that they were going to kill their planet through their war. And he loaded raw energon, seeded planets. Again, this is accurate here. Great War rages on. Cybertron's dying. And then they say Thunderwing threatened both sides. Cost of victory was high. They had to leave Cybertron. But then strange signals were found, so Prime had to come back. His fears would soon be confirmed. Thunderwing survived. And then they say how he survived and what he planned to do would remain a mystery. No. It's spelled out exactly in the comic why Thunderwing is back, how he came back, and what he planned to do. It's spelled out Not even just to the Decepticons, but Jetfire is there when he hears the whole grand scheme. So it's not like the Autobots don't know. They know more than the Decepticons even know about this, really. Anyway, it then goes on to talk about how in the ensuing battle and return to Cybertron, a rogue Decepticon named Bludgeon unlocked Shockwave's research files. No. They got the chronology wrong here, see. Bludgeon is responsible for Thunderwing's return. Ergo, Bludgeon didn't just discover Shockwave's files. He discovered Shockwave's files probably shortly after Megatron ordered him to look at Shockwave's files once Shockwave went missing. This was also probably well before Stormbringer, given that the Decepticons evidently had not declared Cybertron an off-limits zone yet.